Hello there, 2026 and I'm in Ripon. I'm retired. Hopefully I am anyway. I'm doing this video to tell everybody what me and Kath were up to when we were in Canada. The first time we went, we did go more than once. I'm going to tell you on this video about the time we were working for H&R Transport out of Lethbridge, Alberta, and what happened to us, how it all went down. So bear with us. I'm going to put some clips on and some photos, but I'll tell you what it was like to be a temporary foreign worker, and that's the thing with it. When people were going over there, they were being employed, they were going over and thinking they were emigrating, and most of them weren't emigrating because they were simply temporary foreign workers. I went up to Newcastle. I'd seen an advert in the paper. In fact, Kath had seen the advert in the paper for drivers wanted in Canada, and I was a bit fed up where I worked. I'd been there 10 years and I was a bit fed up with it, plus there were threats of the contract running out and maybe redundancy. So we went for an interview up in Newcastle for a company, the company I've just mentioned, H&R Transport. The deal was, if you got the job, they'd fly you out there with your partner if you like, and they put you through the class 1 in Canada, put you up in a hotel until you got the pass, and then you'd go off and do a couple of mentor trips with experienced drivers, and after that you get a truck and off you go. So that's what we did. I got offered the job. I was thinking it's because I must have had a great CV. The fact of the matter is I had a pulse and a class 1 licence. Anyway, that's by the by. So we got sorted out, packed our jobs in, and off we went to Canada. And it was pretty good. They fly you out to Calgary. When you get to Calgary, you get picked up. They take you to a hotel in Lethbridge. We were in the Lethbridge Lodge. Some of them went to, what they call the other hotel? I've forgotten the other hotel. Anyway, we all went to the hotel. When we were in the airport, we met up with some other people who were coming over. Scottish lad called the Wolf or Wolfman, Gidleask. Spanish guy and his Russian girlfriend, Javier and Inga. And we all went down to Lethbridge Lodge and got put up down there. Very nice hotel as well. And then within a couple of days, we went off to do our class 1 training. So we did the class 1 training and the air brake tests and everything. Class 1 test. So we do the class 1, pass the class 1 test and the air brake test, and then they send us away with another driver. I went out with a guy called Mike Nash, an experienced driver, and we went off down to, the idea is you pick up a meat load and you drive down to the border. In this case it was Sweetgrass, Montana, or Coots is the Canadian side of the border, Sweetgrass is the other side. So you drive down there, you go through meat inspection, you do all the paperwork at the border, then you go through meat inspection, then off you go. So we went down to Los Angeles or San Francisco, I can't remember which it was, but what a fantastic start to a job. So we went down there, driving through all sorts of weather, arrived there, got rid of the load, and then we were supposed to pick up and come back up to base, and then I would go out with another driver doing the Rocky Mountains. but I think we got detoured off. We went somewhere else in the States to pick up, and then back up to Canada. Anyway, when we got back, had a couple of nights in the hotel, and then off again with a guy called, I think his name was Wayne Hillary, Canadian guy, and we did the run over the Rocky Mountains to Calgary. And a similar thing, had a kip, and then came back with a load from Vancouver across to Calgary, back to base. And then I was given a truck. I had to get all our gear from the hotel, get it all in the truck. This took about 6 weeks, to be honest. I can't remember why there were delays, but with all the training and everything, none of us got a truck straight away. Well, it's another beautiful sunny day in Lethbridge. Kath, what's the weather like? We're going down that road there, have a look, see if it's nice down there. What's up with you? It's only a bit of snow. Eh? Where are you going? There's a footpath there.
I can't go down there. It's too deep.
So when we did get the truck, I think again the first trip was somewhere down to California, but then we didn't get a load back. We got told to sit and wait, so we did. Then we got a load back, and then when we got back we had to sit and wait back to the hotel, which we were then paying for. Sit and wait at the hotel, and then back to, I think, the Midwest somewhere, back up to Calgary. Pardon me. Then we did a few runs Calgary across the Rocky Mountains to Vancouver, spin around, grab a load, spin around, come back to Calgary or thereabouts. And we did quite a few loads like that, but nearly every time we were unloading, we didn't have a return trip, so we'd have to sit for a day or 2 days. The way it works in Canada and the USA, if your wheels are not turning, you're not earning. So we were sitting and not getting paid anything. So it was costing us money. Now we were lucky in some respects, because our intention was to spend most of the time in the truck and not buy a house or anything, because we weren't immigrants, we were just temporary foreign workers. So we were going to spend time and an occasional time in a hotel. Look how nice this is over here. Beautiful part of the world. Yeah, the idea was to spend time in the truck, and then every time we needed a reset on our hours, or my hours, we'd jump out, go in a hotel or a motel for a night or 2 nights, and then back to work. You're not spending anything on housing or anything like that. You've no social life, so you're not spending money going out anywhere. Of course, when you get back and deliver something and then you've no reload, at first you put up with it, because if you complain to the office, it just says suck it up, buttercup, their favourite phrase, suck it up, buttercup. And they've got plenty more drivers to do the job if you're not willing to wait. I'll explain how that works in a moment, which I think I've got right. The way it works is that all the trucks are leased, and when they send them back, they pay the lease cost is whatever mileage they've done. So if they're parked up doing nothing, it doesn't cost them a penny. All the drivers are effectively leased, because all they pay us is per mile. So if you're parked up not doing anything, it doesn't cost them a penny. And that translates into this. If you send somebody up to a kill plant north of Lethbridge, hour and a half up the road, and you tell them there's a trailer, when you get there, there's usually no trailer. And you get told to park outside and wait, and you'll be called in. And you soon find out that the half a dozen tractor units that belong to H&R outside there have been there sometimes a couple of days, and they've all been promised a trailer. But it doesn't matter, because when the company rings up and says, I need a trailer to take a meat load down to the USA, they always ring H&R because they've got 6 drivers sitting outside waiting for work, which is great for H&R, puts everybody else out of business who can't afford to do that or don't do that. And you've got all the foreign drivers, Brits, Irish, Welsh, Iranians maybe, all nationalities, but mainly, I think mainly Brits. The foreign ones were mainly Brits because they did a big drive into England. So you've got all these drivers sitting there, desperate for a trailer and desperate for money. And as I said, if you complain, suck it up, buttercup. So waiting for a load wasn't a big deal in some respects, because there were only, for me and Kath, because there were only us two. We didn't have a mortgage back home. We had savings and we could rely on the savings. But it gets to a point when you're watching your savings dropping and you're not putting any income in, and we're not extravagant people. So it's not like we were out on the lash every night or things like that. But we were spending an inordinate amount of time between loads in hotels. Places like the Kill plant up north, you wouldn't want to stay there. One Portaloo between half a dozen drivers outside a smelly meat plant. But that's the way they treated people. Some people got better jobs, some people got regular turnarounds, and they were either suck-ups or they just knew how to play the game, keep their heads down. I'm not sure, I really don't know how, but there were some, and they did all right. They'd got the families there. They might have been the first intake, who they had to look after the first intake, but then after that, over the years, or over the few years, it seemed like they were treating everybody like muck. And we did see, on more than one occasion, we saw couples coming out of the office when we were up there waiting for a load. We saw couples coming out of the office literally crying because they'd come over with the families. They'd got a house, either rented or they'd got a mortgage. You could get a mortgage easy enough. So they'd either got a mortgage or they were renting somewhere. If they had a mortgage, they'd tend to be, they'd pay to get the house furnished. And they'd take advantage of them. They'd take them around the shops and say, I'll do your deal on these 2 tellies or 3 tellies. You want a telly for every room, etc. So there were families that spent a lot of money to emigrate to Canada. And they weren't emigrating. They were just temporary foreign workers. And the way that works is, when the company offers you a job, they've had permission from the Canadian government to employ a foreign worker. They've got to prove they can't get the Canadian driver, and then they take on a foreign worker with what they used to call a labour market opinion. And that piece of paper, when you supply it to the people at immigration when you arrive, you give them that, you give them a job offer from the company, you give them the labour market opinion. You've got your, I think you have medical checks, police checks, that kind of thing. You give all them in, and the person in immigration produces a document, a temporary foreign worker document, which the first time we were there it was 2 years, the second time it was a year. But the contract's for 2 years. You can't leave the company you're working for. If you do anything wrong, you're kicked out of Canada. And they fold that document up and staple it inside your passport. You're not an immigrant, you're a temporary foreign worker. And that's where most people got caught out, because of no protection. So when it really does go bad, it's a case of suck it up or clear off. Because to be honest, you know, a lot of lads, particularly my age, would dream about driving American trucks all over Canada and USA. It'd be quite an adventure, which it was an adventure. So they're either willing to suck it up because they want the adventure, or they've got to suck it up because they've invested everything, they've nothing back home. And we do know people who had to leave and they had nothing to go back to. So there's a lot of high stakes there. And as I said a minute ago, me and Kath, we've got savings, and I could go back to a job if I wanted. Kath certainly could go back to her job, which she did. And that's at the end of the story. So we traipsed up and down from Canada to USA. Nice runs all over the place, but we weren't earning the money. And we'd gone through winter, driven in all kinds of weather, which never bothered me, but you wouldn't do it in England, you'd park up. So you're driving all kinds of weather, you're doing your best for yourself and for the company, and the company will give a toss. The job itself, relatively easy. I enjoyed it. Kath enjoyed being a passenger, going all over the place. It was simply the fact that there was too much downtime, too much sitting about, and not enough driving, not enough work. And that really came to a head, I think. We'd come back from one trip, we got back to Calgary, we'd hammered it up from wherever we'd been down south. Hammered it back to Calgary, delivered on time somewhere on an afternoon or an evening, and then we were told return to Lethbridge, there's a trailer going to be ready at 8 o'clock in the morning. So we went back down to Lethbridge, slept in the truck so we could be up and ready 8 o'clock, And along with loads of other drivers, we were parked just opposite the head office. A big row of trucks all waiting for work. Well, not all waiting for work, some were parked up anyway. But we were parked there waiting for work. So, 8 o'clock in the morning, I went across to the office and asked if the trailer was available. And they said it was up in Calgary. Somebody were going to bring it down, come back in a couple of hours. So back to the truck, kicking about in the truck for a couple more hours. I think they said about a couple of hours. So back to the office to be told that we're not sure where the trailer is, but stay put because it's on its way. Another hour or so back across. I said it's just getting loaded with frozen chips at the McCain's plant, which is about an hour out of town. Sit tight. So we sat tight, then I went back across. The trailer's had a puncture, so it's going to be a little while longer. Come back about 5 o'clock. I went back across, and the guy who was in charge of us had gone home. Nobody knew anything about it. So I was a bit upset and a bit annoyed about it. Not upset, I was annoyed. And they got me a trailer. And they said, this trailer has got to be in Calgary tonight. Not Calgary, rather, Vancouver. So we had to set off. We'd been awake all day, kicking about. And now we had to set off and drive through the evening and into the night to deliver to Calgary. And if you've been over there, you know Calgary, not Calgary, Vancouver. That's quite a drive across, 12 or 13 hours across. Anyway, we set off, we got there, we delivered, I think it was the early hours of the morning or just after midnight sometime anyway. And then we had a return load from a place called Maple Foods in Vancouver. We had to drive an hour or so to get to that. That was for 8 o'clock in the morning. We got there, had a couple of hours sleep outside the factory, and then 8 o'clock I went in and the guy said there's no trailer till 2 p.m. And so when I went a bit mad about that, and he said they know about it, it's always 2 p.m. So I'd been pushing my luck, driving when I was tired, and then rushing about, not having proper sleep so I could get a load back, and there wasn't one. So we used to have a computer system called Qualcomm. So I sent messages saying get me another load, and they did actually get me another load from I think it was Walmart or Walgreens or something, a chemist place in Vancouver. So we picked that up and off we went, and that was going to Calgary. To cut a long story short, we unloaded in Calgary and they sent us straight up to Coca-Cola to pick up a trailer there. And when we got there, they said the trailer would be ready. We got there and he said it's going to be about midnight. So that was enough then. I just messaged back and said I'm coming back to Lethbridge. Bobtail, which if you're not a truck driver, then if you've got this far, bobtail is just a tractor unit, no trailer. So nobody makes any money there. And I was warned not to do it. And we did it anyway. And I think Kath said, that's it then, we're finished. And I'm quite happy to finish then. We weren't finished, but they did exactly the same thing a week later. So, time to leave. And that's why we left Canada, because we were being treated like rubbish. We met some great people, we enjoyed the work, the trucks were alright. Any problems with the trucks, they'd fix them as well quite quickly. But of course when your truck's getting fixed, you've no truck, so you're not getting paid, and you're paying for a hotel, or if you've got a house, you're paying for all your household bills and you're getting under your wife's feet and you're annoying each other and your wife's desperate because of no income. The kids are starting a new school. So it didn't work out well for a lot of people. And when I came home, I went on quite a few forums slagging off H&R Transport, and I found that there were plenty of people in the same boat. Most people just take it on the chin. They've lost money, they've had a little adventure. In some cases it's broken the marriages up, but they just take it and go back home, and that's it, wash their hands of it. They don't go on forums or anything. But there were still quite a few going on forums who were peed off because they had their lives messed up. Not in our case. I didn't need to go on forums. Our life went back to normal. We came back and got back to work again. But we saw a lot of people in bad ways over there. In one case, one of the guys had a mental breakdown because he just couldn't earn the money. So that was it. So bye bye to Canada. So did you ever see any adverts if you were truck drivers? Did you see adverts for come and work in America, come and work in Canada? Did you ever fancy it? It's not as easy to get there now because they're not LMOs now, they're called LMIAs. But it's difficult to get them because the training costs an absolute fortune now. If you have to pay for it, or even if the company pays for it, it costs a lot more than it ever used to do. So people like me could go back, I suppose. All I have to do is get my medical and they'll reinstate my Canadian Class 1. Obviously I'm too old for it now and I haven't got the stamina. But anyway, so that was our first bite at Canada through the winter of 2008 and into the spring of 2009 until we packed in. We weren't happy about finishing, but you can't have people taking the piss, especially if it's costing you money. You go to earn a living, not to lose all your savings. So we came back. While I was on all these forums, you'd get people saying, it's you weren't up to the job. We don't get all these people, you get a few people saying you're not up to the job, that's a problem. You've got to suck it up and just work hard. And we're willing to work hard, they just didn't give you the runs. Or they did, but they were too far apart very often. So I did think for quite a while, is it me? Is it really me? Am I not cut out for it? And that leads on to chapter 2, which will be coming up in a little, well, I don't know when I'm going to do that, but we did go back. The pair of us went back and I went to another company called Watt & Stewart. Much harder work. The H&R Transport were either dry vans or fridges. So you didn't have to do anything. They open the back doors, they fill it up, they close the back doors, you drive a couple of days to where you're going, they open the back doors and take it off basically. You don't do a lot of actual hard physical work. But those who've driven flatbeds know that flatbeds are a different story. I think I'll go over this way. Yeah, flat deck work is a different story altogether. So if you keep subscribed, or if you subscribe and press the notifications bell, I'll bring you the second chapter of this, where we both go back again and do some proper work. So if you just keep your eye out for a few weeks, I'll be bringing you another video. But it's like a happier ending, I think. Well, happy in some ways. When we worked for the proper company and got plenty of work. Anyway, we're back in 2026. I don't drive trucks, and the reason I'm doing the video really, I think, is like all our videos, is to keep them somewhere for posterity, because the chances are at some point they'll disappear. I'll lose them off my computer, or I'll lose the hard drives or something. So I'll come back soon and I'll show you some more footage, flat deck work. How about that? Ciao for now.